Tonight, it's a celebration of outstanding journalism, courageous, pressing, and impactful reporting, broadcast, documentary, and online. Welcome to the 75th anniversary celebration of the DuPont-Columbia Awards. This evening, some of the biggest names in news gathered to honor this year's best in journalism, shining a light on those far away and forgotten, tackling critical issues from mental health, the opioid crisis, and climate change, to official misconduct that poisoned a generation. Local news exposés, network news specials, radio and online, representing the best in today's broadcast, digital, and documentary journalism in the public service. Now, coming to you from Columbia University's historic Low Library Rotunda in New York City, these are the 2017 Alfred I. DuPont Columbia University Awards.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, and welcome to Columbia University's historic Low Library Rotunda and to the 2017 Alfred I. DuPont Columbia University Awards. I'm Lester Holt, and tonight we celebrate the 75th anniversary of these distinguished awards by honoring the best in broadcast, online, and documentary journalism from 2015 to 2016. This year's 14 awards come at a time when the role of the free press has never been more important. And we will feature some very special guests, past winners, who are here to highlight the rich history of these awards. I'm joined tonight by Jane Pauley from CBS News. Welcome to Jane, who will be my partner in honoring your exceptional work with the DuPont Silver Baton. We're broadcasting this special 75th anniversary celebration on Channel 25 NYC Life. And our hashtag is, you can't do these things without a hashtag. Our hashtag is DuPont 2017, or hashtag DuPont 2017. Anyway, before we get started, let me just say a few words about journalism right now. It is certainly an honor to share the stage with colleagues who, through their work, remind us that journalism remains a high calling, a noble profession. You don't hear that a lot. It's an important pillar. It is an important pillar supporting our very democracy. We are all well aware of what is happening around us right now, the attacks on our legitimacy, the efforts to undermine our relevance. And I know I'm expected at this point to say something profound, but here's all I got. Let's just do what we do our jobs. They say the best revenge is doing well, and we do well when we report the news the way they teach in places like this. We attribute, we source, we go where the facts lead us. We tell our audiences what we know and what we don't know, and we're never afraid to ask the hard questions. What we can't do is get trapped in a debate. We're not at war with anyone or any entity. That's what some might hope for. We cannot afford to be seen as petty or on someone's side. This is also not a time to worry about being liked. Reporters have been taking hits from people in power throughout history. What we're going through right now did not start on January 20th. Our jobs are not to be liked, but to be respected and to be valued. And we do that by being unflinching. Often when we speak of brave reporters, we naturally and understandably think in terms of those working in conflict zones or disaster zones or in places in the world where they don't honor freedom of the press. But this is a time to be brave on every front that we cover, to push aside the smoke screens that are meant to block us from the truth. Our honorees tonight remind us of the power and potential of broadcast journalism to change lives, to open eyes, and to hold those in positions of power or influence accountable. That's what we do. That's our job. That's what we will continue to do. So, with that, let's get started with the evening. Over the past 75 years, the DuPonts have often awarded brave combat reporting. Our first two awards tonight look further down the road to examine the after effects of war. First, CBS News produced outstanding breaking coverage of one of the most overarching stories of the year, Europe's migrant crisis. Their timely series of breaking news reports was filed by 3 teams of reporters from more than 6 countries. The teams witnessed history as it unfolded, from deep within the human flood pouring into Europe. The jury called this year's winner outstanding, showing viewers the misery and the heartbreak and occasional joy of those fleeing war and economic crisis. In this excerpt from CBS News' Nowhere to Go, Europe's Migrant Crisis, correspondent Holly Williams follows one Syrian family as they brave the Mediterranean Sea in an overcrowded boat bound for Greece.
Do you know how to swim?
لا.
Why have you decided to take such a big risk?
أنا عندي قناعة إنه
We can't live in Syria and we can't live here, Tanya told us. For the sake of our son, we need to leave.
يعني من بيناتنا.
The family gave us permission to follow them as they tried to reach Greece.
So far, they've had good luck. The water is fairly calm today, but the boat is overcrowded and the Greek coastline is still around 5 miles in that direction.
But just after that, an unmarked speedboat arrived from Greek waters. Abdikaran told us there were 5 men dressed in black who pointed guns at the Syrians. So he hid his camera. The men then cut the fuel supply to their motor, leaving terrified men, women and children adrift in the open sea. We saw them do the same to 5 other boats. Eventually, the Turkish Coast Guard came to the rescue and we helped tow the boat to safety. Tanya and her family didn't make it to Greece today, but they're still alive and told us they'll try again as many times as it takes to reach Europe.
CBS News has a long history with the DuPont Awards, winning some 50 batons over the years, starting in 1947 when Edward R. Murrow won CBS's first after several years of fearless World War II coverage for CBS News Radio. Here to accept this year's DuPont Award, please welcome CBS News correspondent Holly Williams.
Thank you. This is such a big honor for all of us at CBS News, and first of all, I'd like to thank Columbia University for recognizing our work with this lovely award. We'd like to dedicate the award to the refugees, to the people who at a time of great fear and loss and trepidation decided to share their stories with us. I think that was a very brave and generous thing for them to do. I feel very proud to work with Mark Phillips and Charlie Daggeter, the other correspondents who were involved in this work. Charlie and the rest of his team didn't just report their stories, they lived them. They followed the refugees as they trekked across Europe, trying to find a new life, all the way from the Balkans to Germany. I know that Charlie very much wanted to be here this evening, and he can't because, of course, he's back in the field reporting again, this time in Mosul. There are too many people for me to thank in the CBS News London Bureau. But I think this award is really for that bureau and all of the ridiculously talented people that work in it, all of whom contributed to this award. We are led in the London Bureau by Andy Clark and Deb Thompson. And those of us who work in the field spend most of our working lives sending them demented with our antics. But we all know that we would never get out the door, yet less, commit journalism without them behind us. So Andy and Deb, we thank you and we love you. Here in New York, I'd especially like to thank Heather Abbott, who makes me and I imagine a great number of other people look much cleverer and more considered than we really are. One of the great things about working for CBS News is that there isn't just a tolerance for international news or even an appetite. There's a real hunger for foreign reporting, and for that I want to thank David Rhodes, Scott Pelley, Steve Kappas, Ryan Cadro, and Ingrid Cyprian-Matthews. It is inspiring for us when we're in the field in Europe or the Middle East to know that you care about these stories. Thank you.
Congratulations again. The second look at the casualties of war is actually a listen from a partnership between NPR and Colorado Public Radio for a groundbreaking expose. The team explored how the Army kicked out tens of thousands of returning veterans who were disabled with PTSD or brain injuries, depriving them of health benefits. It's one of the 9 awards this year for investigative reporting, a critical core mission of the DuPonts. Reporters Daniel Zwerdling and Michael DeYana obtained 20 hours of secret recordings of a troubled soldier made during therapy sessions. They captured Army therapists dismissing his suicidal tendencies. In this excerpt from Mistreatment, we'll hear how another soldier with PTSD was treated, a soldier revered by those he served with.
Out of all the leaders you've known, where does Larry Morrison rank?
I mean, in the top 10, for sure. I've had to put my life in his hands more than once, and every single time I did, it was the right answer.
That's the Larry Morrison who was scheduled to retire with honor on March 17th this year. The Army said he deserved to retire on medical grounds because he has chronic PTSD. But around 3 p.m. that very day, Morrison's commander gave him a document. It said instead of retiring him, the Army's going to kick him out and take away his benefits. Why? Because Morrison pleaded guilty to a DUI and reckless driving 2 years ago, and because the Army alleges that Morrison joined a criminal motorcycle gang that's been linked to shootings and drugs. Morrison and other soldiers told us, criminal gang? It's one of the most popular bike clubs for black troops. Morrison's hired a lawyer to fight for him. Meanwhile, he gets recurring nightmares about one of his soldiers who got killed in Afghanistan. A doctor prescribed pills to suppress the dreams, but Morrison says he doesn't always take them.
Nightmares are bad, but at the same time they're good, you know. Actually, because the nightmares help you to remember the guys that are gone, and you know you can't go see them, you can't call them, and you can't go talk to them, so sometimes you want the nightmares to help you spend time with the guys that are actually gone.
Since winning its first DuPont in 1976, NPR has won over 30 awards here at Columbia. Here to accept this year's silver baton, please welcome NPR investigative correspondent Daniel Zwerdling and the news director from KUNC in Colorado, Michael DeYana.
Thank you so much. My colleagues and I are touched for this honor. At the same time, we're feeling a little unsettled on one level, and here it is. More than 10 years ago, Michael and I, independently, we didn't even know each other then, started investigating these very same issues, and we revealed that the Army was kicking out troops who came back from the wars with terrible problems. And members of Congress were outraged, and the Army said, "We're sorry, we'll improve," and they made a couple baby steps. And here it is, 2017, and we find the Army is doing the same thing. And by the way, I want to mention that we couldn't have done any of these stories without 2 sources, a former soldier named George Andreas Pagani, and a former Marine, Robert Alvarez. These guys have been working for years for free to help troubled soldiers and also to get people like us to investigate their problems. So anyway, the Army, once again, has said, we will improve the system, and they've taken another couple baby steps. So Michael and I want to say something to especially the younger journalists tonight. When you do an investigation and it gets lots of results, when it gets lots of attention, that's great. But that's not the end of it. You have to come back 3 years later. You have to come back 10 years later and keep holding the system accountable. And I want to thank NPR and Colorado Public Radio for giving us the support to help us do that.
Yeah. We'll be back.
Great work, thank you. We're fortunate tonight to be joined by Jane Pauley, the new host of CBS News Sunday Morning. She was a correspondent and co-host, as you recall, of the Today Show at NBC, where she also started a weekly news magazine series, Real Life, with Jane Pauley. It was later renamed Dateline. Dateline took home 2 batons under Jane's stewardship, and she hosted the awards in 1992 and 1997. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Jane Pauley.
Thank you, Lester. Well, I don't know so much about that stewardship thing, but friendship and admiration, absolutely. And good evening, everybody. Great to be back in the Low Library. And now to our first special guest for the night to highlight the tradition of these awards. Over the last 20 years, he and his team have won 5 awards, DuPont Awards, for radio programming that has revolutionized public radio and the way we tell stories with sound. Ira Glass has hosted and produced This American Life since he created the program in 1995. Every week, almost 2 million listeners tune in on more than 500 public radio stations and on the podcast. His DuPont award-winning programs tell a range of stories from cancer treatment to anti-Muslim discrimination to the global recession of 2008 and gun violence. In this excerpt, clipped using This American Life's new shortcut app for sharing audio, we'll hear the 2014 DuPont-winning series, Harper High, Parts 1 and 2. Producers spent 5 months at Harper High School in Chicago to give listeners a sense of life in the midst of so much gun violence.
Harper High School, south side of Chicago. First day of school this year, first thing in the morning, everybody gathers in the gym for a beginning of the year assembly. The school's principal, Leonetta Sanders, is at the mic.
I need us to begin to quiet down.
Sitting all together in a group are the freshmen, looking the way that freshmen do on the first day of school, like they barely know who they are.
The class of 2016, where you at? The class of 2016, where you at?
Down in front, sitting together, are the seniors, looking the way seniors do on the first day of school.
And then my babies are here. My class of 2013, where you at?
The program is 1/3 pep rally, 2/3 business, introductions and rules. Exactly the kind of first day stuff you would expect at any school, till it's not.
Last year was a difficult year for most of us, for all of us in the Harper community. You know, and the freshmen may not know, but we lost 3 students last year.
This is actually underplaying the bad news. Last year, 21 kids, current and recent Harper students, were wounded by gunshots. 5 recent students died. And that is all on top of the 3 current students that Ms. Sanders mentioned. Total, 29 shot, 8 of them dead.
Please welcome This American Life host and executive producer, Ira Glass.
Thank you for this honor. One way to measure the limited power of fact-based reporting came this September when Donald Trump held a press conference declaring that, number 1, he had personally concluded that Barack Obama was born in this country, and number 2, the rumor that he was not born in this country was started by Hillary Clinton. That second claim, everybody will remember, was refuted almost in real time on live television, forcefully and thoroughly by the excellent and exemplary Jake Tapper on CNN and by a number of others. And then the entire machine of the American mainstream media kicked into gear immediately and for a few days, refuting the lie about Hillary Clinton starting the birther controversy. And then a couple days after that, I went looking for polling numbers on this issue. So the only poll that I could find that hit this specific topic in the right time frame was a Monmouth poll of likely voters in Florida. It showed that after Trump's press conference, a couple days after, 1/3 now believe that Hillary Clinton started the birther controversy, which is really depressing. Sometimes this year, I don't know how you all are feeling, but sometimes it feels like, as a working journalist, I'm on a team that is losing yardage week by week. And seeing that, I also had this feeling that I wonder if a lot of people in this room have had at some point this year, like, I want to reach those people. Like, I want to reach that third. Like, I want to reach them, those people who are not interested in factual information, or in fact, they actively doubt the factual information presented by those of us who are in the mainstream media. And it's a puzzle, honestly, I've been thinking about for months. Like, how do we present fact-based reporting to people who do not trust any of us in this room? Like, what do we need to invent to do that? I will say, because I am a fact-based person, the answer to that is possibly that there's nothing we can do. But I'll also say, that just seems like quitter talk. And among the American values that I believe that journalists carry every day in their jobs in exemplary ways is that we are not quitters. We make the extra phone call. We do the extra interview. We do not shut up, ever. And I don't know. I feel like we need to run at this problem. We were told to focus our remarks tonight. I got an email saying, focus on, quote, things that will inspire our audience. Ever since I was a baby reporter at NPR when I was 19 and 20 years old, I have taken my assignments very seriously, and I try to deliver to my editors what I am asked. Here are some things that I see right now that I find to be hopeful. First off, in just these first few days of this new administration, the force and the speed with which the press has been countering the non-factual statements coming out of the White House has been totally wonderful to watch. Like so many moments in the Spicer press conferences just make me feel so proud to be a journalist, proud to be on the team, like just proud of my colleagues who are asking questions like, could we just hear, like, how many people are unemployed right now in this country? Like, what's the baseline? Maura Liasson asked that recently at a press conference. Like, if you're saying you're going to add to the number of jobs, what is the unemployment rate right now? I'm in the unusual position to be a part of journalism that's going through a crazy boom time where audience and revenues are climbing very, very quickly, and that's podcasting. Millions of people around the world are consuming long-form, serious journalism in podcast form. 13 million people downloaded every episode of Serial Season 1. 4 million people, I think more, downloaded every episode of NPR's Invisibilia. 2.5 million download every episode of This American Life. And one of our producers, Zoe Chase, I feel like these podcasts go places that are really interesting. One of our producers, Zoe Chase, was at the inaugural ball, one of the inaugural balls last week, the one for people who create memes and troll on behalf of Donald Trump on social media. There was the Deplora ball. And she was very interested to learn how many, many fans we had there. Like, one person after another came up to her to tell her that. And the president, for all of his complaining about CNN, really seems to watch a lot of CNN. You know, and I will say, like, 1/3 of the people in that Florida poll believed a lie. And 2/3 knew it was a lie. They heard the truth. That's most. That's still most. Which is to say, people are still paying attention to what we're doing. We are still in the game. As Lester Holt said at the beginning of this, let's do our jobs.
Tonight, we'll honor 5 local investigative series, and the first is from WTHR in Indianapolis for their shocking undercover investigation that exposed deplorable conditions and staggering mismanagement at a local rescue mission. Tons of food and items donated for the homeless never made it to those who needed it most. The series prompted immediate resignations, state investigations, and significant changes to protect the charity's homeless residents and its donors. WTHR also found the homeless shelter was plagued by health and safety violations, resulting in homeless residents living in filthy bed-bug-infested conditions. Let's take a look now at WTHR's charity caught on camera.
13 Investigates has been closely tracking shipments of food to the Grant County Rescue Mission. That is a whole truckload just picked up from the nearby Walmart distribution center. We watched staff and homeless residents unload boxes of food into the building. Then a pickup truck pulls alongside. The man behind the wheel, that's Pastor Tom Mansbarger, president of the mission's board of directors. He directs box after box to be loaded into the pickup, more than 40 boxes in all. A few minutes later, with a full truck, he drives away and we follow close behind. The destination, Grace Community Church, where Tom Mansbarger is the head pastor. We watch as church employees and the pastor's family comb through the boxes of food. They carry some into the church. They carry others to their own vehicles and drive away. And finally, we watch Pastor Mansbarger take food to his own house, where he carries some of it into the garage. Then he and his wife carry one box after another into their home.
This food is supposed to be feeding the homeless, and it's ending up in your garage and in your house. Why is that happening?
I don't know where you got the concept of feeding the homeless. We'll feed anybody. It's not just the homeless. For what I've personally taken, and I have taken things, you know.
So you and your family are eating some of that food?
Sure, because it's there to take. If I thought I were doing something wrong, I would have never done it in the beginning.
Would you please welcome WTHR senior investigative reporter Bob Stiegel. And team.
Definitely want to thank Columbia University and the DuPont Awards for recognizing the contributions of local television news. I have to tell you, I remember when the first tip on this story came in, and it seemed simply too crazy to be true. Even if the allegations were right, how could we possibly prove it? We would literally have to be in the right place at the right time and essentially catch these folks red-handed to back up this investigation. Thanks to some luck and this incredible team behind me, Cindy Hebert, Susan Batt, and Bill Ditton, we were able to do what seemed at the onset almost impossible. So the question is, how were we able to do that? And for that, I need to pick on Bill here a little bit. I've worked with Bill Ditton almost every day for the 11 years since I arrived at WTHR. And when Bill arrived at WTHR, the year was 1980, Jimmy Carter was president, and I was in 3rd grade. And I point that out not to suggest that he's old, but rather to point out that with all that experience, Bill is an old pro and someone who can make stories like these come to life. So it was Bill's suggestion when we went up to Marion, Indiana to the homeless shelter, which is a 200-mile round trip from Indianapolis, that we take 2 vehicles, not one, and that we had 5 cameras with us to be able to make sure that we could increase the odds that we'd actually be able to get some of the evidence that we thought that we needed for this story. So if you can imagine, come along with me and crouch down in the back of my minivan As I'm looking through a little viewfinder, amazed at what I'm looking at, which is the board president of a local charity taking food that was donated to the homeless and giving it to his friends and family. And as I'm looking through that viewfinder, I rub my eyes because I could almost swear that I'm seeing someone who looks an awful lot like my cameraman walk into the frame and strike up a conversation with the people that we were having under surveillance. So a while later, when I met up with Bill, I said, Bill, what were you doing? And he said, well, the county fairgrounds, I'm pretty sure, are somewhere around here. I just was asking directions on how to get to the county fairgrounds. And of course, at the time he was doing that, he was wearing his undercover glasses, so we could get some of those close-up shots that we needed to be able to show where the food came from and what it was. That's an old pro, and that's the kind of work. So we're very blessed to have a wonderful team at WTHR, and I dare say everyone who will come up on this stage tonight have people working with them just like that, working behind the scenes to make these stories come to life. I want to thank some other people who are working hard behind the scenes every day, Kathy Hostetter, Larry D'Elia, and Michael Fiorelli, who are with us here tonight, for allowing us to tell these very important stories that we tell. I want to thank the brave men and women at the homeless shelter who trusted us to tell their stories. And one more thank you, someone who's not here with us tonight. For more than 40 years, John Wolfe served as chairman of our parent company, Dispatch Printing. He was a passionate advocate for journalism and for the First Amendment. He was very quiet and very shy, but his voice could be heard for miles because of his commitment to philanthropy and to making central Indiana and especially central Ohio a better place to live for millions of people. John passed away last year. We miss him dearly. Among his many legacies, not just stories like this one, but the type of journalism that we are here celebrating tonight. So on behalf of all of my colleagues at WTHR, we proudly accept this tremendous honor in Mr. Wolfe's memory. Thank you very much.
Our next two winners showcase public interest reporting at its best, using new technologies to expose problems and hold officials in their communities accountable. In these times of digital tracking and surveillance, WXIA 11 Live Atlanta's ongoing series of investigative reports, Dying for Help, reveals a dangerous disconnect. They were the first to report that rescuers cannot find cell phone callers during half of all emergencies, even deadly ones. The reports are getting real results and even spurred the development of a permanent fix to the systemic failures in an obsolete 911 system, a system where emergency calls routinely go to the wrong jurisdiction. The inventors featured in this series were just awarded a U.S. patent for their 911 fix that could make us all a little safer. Let's take a look at the anatomy of one 911 call, Dying for Help.
What is the address of your emergency? I'm in a car in a lake. Where? I'm losing the air very quickly. Give me the address one more time. It's not working.
Chanel Anderson was lost on the line. Her 911 call was routed to the wrong call center, and her phone never told dispatchers where to find her sinking car.
Ma'am, I lost her.
Do you believe that this technology would have saved her life had it been in her hands?
Without a doubt. There is no question.
Fred White.
When we call 911 through the cell network,
we're ending up in the wrong jurisdiction.
And Michael Self.
Enough is enough. We're in a position to be able to do this. Let's solve this problem.
Are inventors determined to fix 911?
Every 30 seconds that is spent on 911, telling them who you are, where you are, what's going on, and how to get there, counts towards that golden hour.
We're parked at the edge of the same pond where Chanel Anderson called 911 to test the existing system.
Okay, here we go.
911, what's the address of your emergency?
This is not an emergency call. This is a field technician test call only. Can you please validate the address on your CAD display? Do you have phase 2 on me yet?
Yes. Well, actually, no.
Okay.
Now it's phase 2.
What's the phase 2 address?
Phone is showing 300 Batesville Road. My CAD is showing 374 Gables Walk.
Both of those are the cell tower. It's still about a mile away. Is this Alpharetta?
It is. We're in the wrong jurisdiction.
That's exactly what happened to Chanel's 911 call. She was in Cherokee County, but her call hit a tower in Fulton County.
Give me the address one more time. It's not working.
Here to accept the DuPont baton, please welcome Chief WXIA Investigator Brendan Keefe.
This goes right up here. And we're going to do this in 360 VR too. So, thank you. Thank you to the Columbia University Graduate School of Journalism and to the DuPont jurors for this honor. And congratulations to all of our fellow honorees tonight. And also, we must recognize the many graduate students in journalism who are present this evening. They're the young faces who look like many of the MMJs in our newsrooms are soon to be, and they are the future of journalism, and we should applaud them tonight. Truth. It's in short supply these days. Yet truth remains the most powerful weapon we have against ignorance, partisanship, and deception. There are no alternative facts, only truths and lies. We in TV news are actually responsible for starting all of this a few decades ago actually, when I started, with the man on the street interview that we all hate doing, right? That morphed into the comments section on our websites. Then social media took it from there, and now we echo it on the 6 o'clock news by amplifying it as well. Collectively, we are responsible for imparting so much value on opinion, it has been elevated to equal footing with facts, where now many of our news consumers willfully choose comforting, if demonstrably false opinion, over tested truths uncovered by experts using the scientific method. Are we right to investigate the conclusions of a peer-reviewed scientific study? Absolutely. But we are wrong to attempt to balance our reporting on someone who has spent a lifetime researching a topic with the musings of Bob from Boise. To quote New York Senator Daniel Patrick Moynihan, everyone is entitled to his own opinion, but not his own facts. Journalism is a calling, facts are our currency, and truth is our guiding principle. And we are standing tonight in journalism's cathedral. So we must redouble our efforts to hold the powerful accountable. For this investigation, we pressed the FCC to solve the problems that we revealed in 911, but in the end, the solution didn't come from government, it came from the people. And those people are here tonight. Fred White and Michael Self, if I can ask you to stand for just a moment. They invented laser after seeing our investigation. Now they have 2 US patents, and their invention will be pre-installed in millions of cell phones beginning in just a few months, and then many carriers after that, pinpointing your location and routing your call to the correct 911 center, so that no more Chanel Andersons have to die on the line with a dispatcher who doesn't know where you are. I'm a one-man band. I did this alone. But I didn't get here alone. With me tonight are 11 Alive General Manager John Duchesne and News Director Jennifer Rigby, and also our Vice President of News from Tegna is here with us, Ellen Crook. The DuPont is theirs as much as it is mine because they have chosen quality over quantity, enabling me as an investigative MMJ and empowering me with a mandate to seek the truth. And I certainly wouldn't be standing here without Tegna Vice President Ellen Crook, Vice President of News. I was only a few blocks from this very place when Ellen called me and asked me if I was looking for a job. I answered no. I told her I was looking for the job. And the trifecta of National Investigative Awards over the last 12 months is proof indeed, Ellen, that this is the job you promised it would be. Finally, let me make two personal thank yous to my big sister, retired Hearst Vice President Kathleen Keefe, who blazed a path for me in television and who showed me how to contemplate the universe. And to my lifelong best friend, Charles Chang, a Columbia University alum. Charles and I have been battling dragons since third grade together, and he has always offered the perfect balance of encouragement and criticism to keep me honest. And I'll close with this. We have a free press only so long as reporters are free to seek the truth. The leaders, mentors, and friends I have thanked tonight have given me that freedom. Thank you.
Our next award also honors original reporting that increased awareness and got results. KXAN Austin conducted a massive data-driven investigation that uncovered overwhelming evidence law enforcement was subverting racial profiling statistics by consistently misreporting the race of minority motorists during traffic stops. The station analyzed traffic stop data from the past 5 years for law enforcement agencies and found significantly large numbers of minorities, mostly Hispanic, were being reported as white in violation of the Texas racial profiling law. The investigation prompted action by state lawmakers and triggered audits and policy changes. Let's take a look at KXAN's racial profiling whitewash.
The head of APD's training academy said this.
We very accurately document every stop and every contact with the public.
But that's not what we found. KXAN uncovered case after case of Austin officers ticketing minority drivers incorrectly, marking them down as white, when as you can see, they're clearly not. We analyzed more than 600,000 tickets from the last 5 years. We identified and verified drivers who are Hispanic, Asian, and Black recorded in APD's own racial profiling data as white, like Monique Weedle, Ebony Stearns, Monique Verse, and Eric Pham, each marked down by an officer as white. And there's Darren Chung.
It's just surprising. I mean, I'm not white, so it's just a surprise.
His ticket from running a red light this year says he's white too.
I'm half Indian, quarter Black, quarter Chinese.
Are you white?
Not white.
You were right, and we were wrong.
The head of DPS finally admits what KXAN uncovered his troopers doing is true.
What we can do better, and what we should have been doing better, is collect the data accurately as it relates to Hispanics. Plain and simple, guilty, and that should have been done better, and we've got an obligation to fix that.
Accepting the DuPont baton for KXAN's racial profiling whitewash, please welcome investigative reporter Brian Collister. Congratulations.
We'll get the whole crew up here. Thank you very much on behalf of KXAN and on behalf of our investigative team. Joe Ellis, our producer, my intern 20 years ago, still can't get rid of him. Josh Hinkle, our executive producer, as well as Ben Freeberg, that guy in the back there with the beard, our photographer, but especially to those who oversee us and collaborate with us and have created the environment at KXAN where they wanted us to do groundbreaking investigative work, and they set us up to win, and that is News Director Chad Cross and General Manager Eric Lasberg. Thank you very much for giving us the tools to do this type of reporting, which did make a difference in our community and in our state. This started with the Austin Police Department, and then we took it to our state police. And we did that because it involved the case of Sandra Bland, an African-American woman who was pulled over by a DPS trooper in a case that many people complain was racial profiling. And the director of our state police went before lawmakers and literally pointed to the statistics required by law to be collected to defend his agency against allegations of racial profiling. And that's when we went into the information, not just the data, hundreds of traffic citations, dash cam videos, to disprove the numbers that they had presented to our lawmakers and to our public to say they were not racially profiling. I think that the aha moment, and those of us that do this, I'm getting chills right now thinking about it. We have a data editor, Robert Sims, who couldn't be with us tonight. I asked him to do an account of the last names of everyone the DPS put down as white. The top name was Smith, Morales, Gonzalez, Hernandez, Fernandez. Those were the next 5 names at least, and then the list went on of mainly Hispanic motorists who had been put down as white, completely obscuring the data. So it started with the Sandra Bland case, and I'll close with this. I'm guilty of, and I think we all are, of thinking that maybe this is a story about government not doing its job. What do I know? I'm a white guy, and I get pulled over by a trooper, and I've thought, I got to take defensive driving. I haven't had the thought, which many people have, people of color, that I might not make it home tonight, that this officer may use unnecessary force, fabricate evidence, or something may happen to me. And I didn't realize that until we were at a Pointer workshop recently talking about race and policing, and a black journalist said that when the Sandra Bland case happened, her sister in Dallas called her and said, I know that's going to happen to me, and I want us to have a signal. I want us to create a text message where I can text you if I've been pulled over. I've never had that thought. I don't think any of us have had that thought. And to me, that's the injustice that we hope that we are moving toward helping to resolve, that people of color, when they get pulled over, have to feel that way. That is a pit in your gut. And I've never felt that. And if you have never felt that, think about it. But there are plenty of people that we've talked to during this investigation who have, and hopefully we can bring an end to it. Thank you again from KXAN.
Great work. Thank you. I know it got a bit crowded up there. Just to be clear, I didn't win anything. Happy to share in the glory, but I had no part. This year, the DuPont jury selected 14 winners from almost 600 television, radio, documentary, and online entries. Before the jury met, close to 100 screeners, many of them former DuPont winners, evaluated the entries. Altogether, the DuPont jurors watched over 150 hours of programs. They met at Columbia over the course of 3 days in October to select the winners. So members of the jury, please stand. And thank you for your time and your dedication to upholding journalistic standards for the profession and for the public. We do appreciate it. We're also joined tonight by several past members of the DuPont jury who are with us as part of the award's 75th anniversary celebration. I invite you to stand as well. Thank you to our past jurors. Now it is my pleasure to introduce our second special guest, a legendary reporter whose courageous conflict reporting around the world shines a light in dark places from Iran to Bosnia and Iraq and many more. She's known for holding the powerful accountable with tough and fair questions. Christiane Amanpour is Chief International Correspondent at CNN, where she hosts the global affairs interview program Amanpour. She's won 5 DuPonts, her first in 1985 for a documentary about Iran. And she was part of a team of reporters from CNN who were honored for coverage of the war in Bosnia in 1994. Her most recent award in 2009 was for a precedent series about the rise of religious fundamentalism around the world and here in the U.S. Let's take a look back at some of her signature reporting from the war in Bosnia.
CNN interviewed 2 Serb soldiers captured and jailed by Muslim forces in Sarajevo. In the presence of their captors, they told us they had been ordered to rape and kill Muslim women.
I killed 1 girl and 1 man, and I raped 2 girls. A man showed us which rooms we should take. When we entered, he threatened the girls, telling them not to shout or scream.
They told us it was good for the soldiers' morale. Then they told us we would have to kill them because there wasn't enough food and there would be more women. I killed only 2.
The international community estimates that Serbs may have systematically raped as many as 20,000 Muslim women as a weapon of war, though they admit they may never know the real figure because of the code of silence among women who are overwhelmed by feelings of shame and resentment. Resentment because stories like these have been filtering out for more than 6 months now as the world stood silently by.
Please welcome CNN's Christiane Amanpour.
Thank you so much. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. It's really exciting and actually exhilarating being here tonight. I'm so proud to have won one of these or a couple of these, and I'm so amazed to see this amazing journalism still. And it is exciting because we know, don't we, that we are in a special historic moment where really it goes to show and it does prove that excellent journalism, such as the journalism that's been awarded here tonight, is vital to a decent and robust and strong democracy. And we know that right now we must stay focused, we must stay united, we must not be distracted by the latest shiny object, we must continue to seek and to recognize and to defend the truth and what is meaningful and what is important. I feel very strongly that if the powerful declares war on us, we have to fight back. And if they try to tempt us with access, we have to resist. And especially right now, I think above all else, we must not be complacent in continuing to ensure that those great words of Edward R. Murrow that are inscribed on every DuPont baton, that this platform that we have can educate, can illuminate, and can inspire. And we must always ensure, as he warned, never to allow it to be just wires and lights in a box. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Christiane. Thank you. I'd like you to please welcome to the podium the Dean of the Columbia Journalism School, Steve Call.
Thank you, Lester. One of the highlights for us tonight is the chance to welcome back alumni from the journalism school who are being honored with DuPont Awards. Tonight I'd like to acknowledge a number of them who are here. Rainey Aronson, as ever, Charlie Sennett, Liz Brown-Kuriloff, Robert Little, Darren Foster, and Mariana Van Zeller. In fact, our next winner features reporting from 2 of those alumni who met while they were at the school. And last year, working as a team at Fusion, they found a new angle on the opioid crisis in America, a newly popular drug that has really deepened the stakes in that serious crisis. Fentanyl is 50 times stronger than heroin. It's so potent that an amount the size of 3 grains of sugar is lethal to an adult. And what sparked Fusion's investigation were signs of a sudden spike in overdose deaths across the country. Their work, The Naked Truth, Death by Fentanyl, contributed to our understanding of this epidemic, tracking it through the streets of Revere, Massachusetts, where firefighters spend more time ministering to overdoses than they do fighting fires, and taking a hard firsthand look at the production line deep in Sinaloa, home of Mexico's powerful drug cartel. Let's take a look at their work.
Javier says he sources the precursor chemicals to make fentanyl from China. 2 years ago, his family paid a Colombian chemist $50,000 to learn how to make it, and it paid off. Demand from the US has tripled since then, he says.
So he was saying that they used to send marijuana up to the United States, but 5-6 years ago they started seeing this increase in demand for heroin, so they started making heroin, and now that's all they do. And 2 years ago they started hearing about fentanyl, so now they are mixing their heroin with fentanyl, and that's how they're shipping it up. Because demand is so high, almost every single person around here that makes heroin is now mixing it with fentanyl.
The men tell me that if they don't put fentanyl into their products, they will lose customers. Just 1 kilo of fentanyl-laced heroin sells in the streets of America for an estimated $50,000. While doing our interview, Javier is called by one of his men.
¿Qué pasó?
Del pueblito que estamos aquí enseguida, vienen para acá, para este pueblo.
¿Quién?
Los amigos.
They quickly pack up their fentanyl-laced heroin and leave the house. They take us to another location where we wait.
It's not a good place to be, so obviously we're a little nervous, we're concerned. And in the meantime, he just left his half a kilo of heroin right here. So it's just us and half a kilo of heroin.
Please welcome to accept Fusion's first DuPont executive producer, Keith Suma.
We're bringing some of the team here, but not, as any of you know in television, all of the team. On behalf of all of us, the Columbia grads here, Mariana and Darren and Nina Alvarez as well, and Christina Constantini, and the rest of the team want to thank you very much for this award. It's a great honor for Fusion to get an award like this. We greatly appreciate it. You know, when Mariana Van Zeller says, we have to do a story about fentanyl, you do a story about fentanyl. It's quite simple. But when we looked at this, what we wanted to do, because we know there's an instinct now and then to, when we're looking for the causes of our problems, to point the finger across a border at another place. We did look at what was going on in Mexico and what El Chapo was doing, but we also looked at what was happening right here in the US in what might be considered the legal fentanyl trade. Because as Mariana and Darren in their previous reporting have shown, the pharmaceutical industry in the US is creating the demand for what becomes street drugs down the road. So when we did this, we talked about El Chapo, but we also looked at a company called Insys that was taking actions to get the fentanyl that was intended for a very small group of people into as many hands as possible. Now, after the story aired, the company threatened to sue us at Fusion and demanded the story be removed from our website and never broadcast again. Fortunately, Fusion and Univision, Isaac Lee, stood by us and said, we're not going to do that. This is one of the advantages of working and being part of the family of Univision. The newsroom just down the hall is filled with journalists who had to leave their country of origin, not because of a lawsuit, but because their lives were threatened or their friends were killed. Not that we don't take lawsuits seriously, but we're not going to let them stop us from doing our reporting. In December, the company Insys had 6 executives indicted and arrested for their part in a RICO scam to violate federal laws to distribute drugs like fentanyl to people who do not need it. That was just about a month before El Chapo was extradited to the US. So we believe that these kind of stories are really important. We're very fortunate that we get the opportunity at a place like Fusion to do these. We're appreciative of you recognizing this, and we're especially appreciative of the folks, those who are in our story, who at personal risk decided to speak and tell the story about what was going on both inside this company and inside the illegal trade. So I'd like to thank you all, and especially Isaac Lee, who gave us the opportunity to do this. Thank you.
I'd like now to acknowledge the staff and trustees of the Jesse Ball DuPont Fund who have made this evening possible for so long, through so many years. They're with us tonight. Please stand and be recognized by the audience. By carrying out the legacy they're great partners, and they're carrying out the legacy of Jessie Ball DuPont, who remembered her husband, Alfred DuPont, by establishing these awards to model and uphold standards of excellence in journalism. And what an achievement over such a long period of time. With your support, we're also able to provide partial scholarships for 3 students. This year are DuPont Fellows. 2 of them are here tonight, Meg Dalton and Kimberly Flores, and they have more to say about the history of the DuPont Award. Please come on up.
Hi, I'm Meg Dalton, DuPont Fellow from the class of 2017. 75 years ago, we all would have been in Midtown tonight at the St. Regis Hotel, where the first DuPonts went live on the radio. Jessie Ball DuPont created the DuPont Awards to honor her late husband, American industrialist, financier, and philanthropist Alfred I. DuPont.
And I'm Kim Flores. Over the years, the DuPonts expanded with each new technology. In 1950 to television, and in 1990 to cable. Today, these awards also honor online and documentary journalism. The common thread? Substantive, original reporting told with compelling narrative, all in the public service.
In these critical times, we DuPont Fellows, and all of us really, look to DuPont winners as role models to carry out the tradition of excellence in reporting.
And for over 20 years, the fellows who came before us have studied with the best here at Columbia and then graduated. A group of them are here with us tonight. Many of our predecessors have gone on to do great things in the journalism world. Past fellows, please stand together as we thank the Jessie Ball DuPont Fund for their generosity.
So thank you, Jessie Ball DuPont Fund.
Our next 2 award winners examine high-profile legal cases where seemingly heroic public figures fell from grace when they were charged with shocking violence against women. In the summer of 2015, as the number of women publicly accusing Bill Cosby of drugging and assaulting them grew, Dateline's producers invited a group of Cosby accusers to share their experiences in one room so viewers could judge for themselves the allegations against one of America's most beloved comedians. 27 of them agreed to take part in a group interview with NBC News correspondent Kate Snow. Meanwhile, the Dateline reporting team fact-checked each story and reviewed each woman's background. Let's hear from them in this excerpt from Dateline, The Cosby Accusers Speak.
How many of you thought Bill Cosby was going to be your mentor? That's a lot of hands. Can I go to you, Lily? You thought Bill Cosby was mentoring you initially.
Oh yeah, I didn't think that, I knew that.
Actress Lily Bernard appeared on The Cosby Show. Lily says Cosby won her trust. One night in 1990, she says, he offered her a drink.
He said, "Drink it, Bernard, drink it." And very quickly, the room started spinning.
Lily says she became incapacitated and Cosby raped her.
And then the next memory, I'm on the floor, on the carpet. And I remember the sensation of the carpet against the flesh of my back, like Velcro, like this. And it hurt, and I couldn't move because of the drugs. And I remember him on top of me. I passed out again. My next memory is there's cold water splashing on my chest. You know, he was bathing me. And I woke to the cold water splashing on my chest. And I still was really groggy and like a noodle, like a wet noodle. He pulled me to the edge of the bed, and because I couldn't, he was pulling on my stockings very quickly and took me to a car.
Their accounts are so intimate, so disturbing, and many here say they still aren't sure what happened to them. But this summer, excerpts of a long-sealed deposition from the Constant case were released. In it, Cosby was asked, when you got the Quaaludes, was it in your mind that you were going to use these Quaaludes for young women that you wanted to have sex with? He answered, yes. He was asked, did you ever give any of those young women the Quaaludes without their knowledge? And his lawyer told him not to answer.
This is the 30th DuPont Award for NBC News. And here to accept this baton for the Cosby Accusers Speak, please welcome NBC News anchor and national correspondent Kate Snow. It's difficult to watch that again. This award, thank you to Columbia University, and thank you to the jurors who I know spent a whole weekend judging all of our work. This award really, though, belongs to 27 women. They did come from all over the country. Most of them had never met before in person. Some of them knew each other because they'd connected online. And we flew all of them to a ballroom in Los Angeles at a hotel. And the only thing they really had in common was that at some point in their life, they all say that they met and knew Bill Cosby and that he either harassed or assaulted or raped them. And they felt, I think you could see it in that clip, that they felt empowered to be in that room. And they all talked about how most of them had heard one story in the news, and that's what prompted them to then come forward. So the first went, and then the second, and then the third, and we're over 50 now accusers of Bill Cosby. And they said in that room that day that they felt they were moving the needle, at least a little bit, for not just for them, and not just for those who accused Bill Cosby, but for all women who've suffered assault or abuse or rape. And that was really important to them. It was why a lot of them agreed to come to that room, because you can imagine that those stories that you just heard, and you could see the emotion in that room, some of them had never, ever told their stories out loud to their families, to their children, quite honestly, to their grandchildren, because a lot of them are grandmothers now. So there was a power in that room that day. You all know in this room, you're all journalists, you know that Bill Cosby has long denied all of these allegations and still does. We offered him the opportunity to come and speak with us, and he declined. And he's going to have his day in court. It's scheduled for June 5th this summer. And a lot of the women that you just saw on that screen, I text with them all the time. We all keep in touch with them. They're planning to be there. 13 other women have pledged that they would testify on behalf of Andrea Constand. And not all of those 13, but many of the 13 were in the room for our Dateline special. So we will be there this summer covering that case. I want to quickly thank some people. We have a whole big group over here. We have a couple of rows of Dateline people. David Corvo and Liz Cole, thank you for greenlighting this hour, for saying this is worth doing, and Ellen Mason for pushing it ahead, and Adam Gorfain to kind of took it over the finish line for us. Liz Brown, Sue Simpson, they spent months and months on research, editorial. Marianne Haggerty led the massive booking effort. You can imagine how difficult that was. Rob Buchanan figured out how to put 27 women in one room on camera and orchestrate that. And then we have a whole bunch of editors, Bruce Berger, Justin Cece, Irene Trolliger, Dom Vass, and our associate producers, some of whom are here, Deborah Kim, Michelle Madigan, Terrell Tanganan, Julie Kim, and Whitney Rogers. I want to say thanks because it was a team effort. But I mostly want to say that this is really for
all the women in that room and all the women who still haven't spoken. And now to one of the most infamous crime stories of the 20th century, masterfully re-examined in a nearly 8-hour documentary from ESPN Films and Lalo Films about the life and legacy of O.J. Simpson. O.J. Made in America. The documentary draws from more than 70 interviews from longtime friends and colleagues of O.J. Simpson and civil rights leaders to members of his legal team and the prosecution. The documentary is an engrossing look at a tragic American tale. Director Ezra Edelman took a wide view by putting O.J.'s story in context: his childhood, the history of the African American community in LA, police relations in the wake of Rodney King, and the train wreck of race and celebrity that made the case so hypnotic. The DuPont jury called his accomplishment extraordinary. In this clip, we'll hear from one of the jurors in Simpson's murder trial reflect on the verdict.
The majority of the world, or the majority of Americans, think that we're a group of idiots who didn't get it right. I think that the jury was made to be the scapegoat for their faults. It was a mistake to present Furman the way they did. It was a mistake to let Darden get up there and be a part of that case. Had they come correct, had they had the right attorneys up there putting on the case that they need to put on, they would have won. It wasn't payback. They messed up.
It may have been payback, but it wasn't payback for anything that happened recently. It was payback for what's happened over the last 400 years. It was payback for how black people are treated in America. I believe that that was on the minds of every black person in America.
In the matter of the people of the state of California versus Orenthal James Simpson, case number BA097211. We, the jury, in the above entitled action, find the defendant, Orenthal James Simpson, not guilty.
Please welcome to the podium Director Ezra Edelman.
The irony of that clip, I think, is followed a little bit by the irony of standing here accepting an award at Columbia Journalism School when I think the only reason why this film was made in many ways was this period in time during this trial, which frankly probably wasn't journalism's best hour. And I think that that was a time when an appetite and a hunger was not met by the sustenance on the part of many beyond news organizations, but people who use that moment in time for financial gain and other things. To be here in this room, I mean, it is beyond humbling with these courageous journalists, lions of journalism in this profession. For us, Tamara Rosenberg, a graduate of the J School, Nina Christic, Caroline Waterlow, we just sort of set out to figure out a way to tell a good story and tell a story about something that, frankly, I think everyone in this room already thought they knew. I think the only way that we could have done this, while we all consider ourselves documentary filmmakers, that's what we are, and storytellers first and foremost, I think there was no other way to approach this except by being a journalist, by being an intrepid journalist. You know, what Tamara and Caroline did by tracking down legions of people across America with the help of our incredible production assistant, Brian Becker, was like any technique that any investigative journalist would use, and would have been impossible to do without the time provided by, and the resources by, ESPN. What Nina Christic did, tracking down every piece of footage in what ultimately is almost an 8-hour film, is, you know, borderline impossible, but she did it. So to stand here today, having sort of figured out a way to tell a story like this over this amount of time is humbling. I do have to thank ESPN, because I think that you can't do something like this without both the resources and the independence and freedom. And what Connor Schell, whose idea it was to make this film in the first place, and so it's a little weird also to stand up to accept an award for something that you did that wasn't even your idea. Libby Geist and Deirdre Fenton, again, the resources, the freedom, the support to do this for something that started off as a really short film. It was supposed to be 5 hours. And they allowed us to, through the course of working on it, to have it expand to, you know, fill out the form that I feel like it needed to be to tell the story properly. For that, I'm eternally grateful. And finally, I wanted to thank Columbia. This is an incredible honor. Thank you.
And now I'm pleased to introduce our third special guest, a broadcast journalism icon who over the years has taken home 6 DuPont batons for extraordinary programming. Bill Moyers has spent more than half a century as a journalist and political commentator. He also served as White House press secretary in the Johnson administration and spent 10 years at CBS News, where he won his first DuPont Award. Then, after starting his own production company, he won his second DuPont Award for the epic 1988 documentary series, Joseph Campbell and the Power of Myth. Other DuPont Award-winning work over the years on public television tackled equally profound and complex topics, from war and its ravages to the power of the timeless song, Amazing Grace. Moyers has taken home not one but 2 coveted gold batons, DuPont's highest honor, and always his elegant, authoritative commentary shines through.
The gold baton goes to Bill Moyers.
In coping with hatred, there are no miracles. This world is hard on believers, and even the faith in progress that greeted our century has itself fallen victim to hatred, armed with modern weapons and sent marching in the service of the state. Even when nations are at peace with one another, we are too often reminded of what hate can do in a single mind possessed by it. We've seen hate born of fear, hate speaking in the name of God and truth, hate holding up a distorting mirror to our fellow human beings. We have seen, too, that hatred is easier learned than relinquished.
Please give a warm welcome to Bill Moyers.
Thank you. Please. Well, you're never too old to say, wow, or to feel the wonder of the moment that inspired it. And I feel the wonder of being up here with so many talented young journalists out there, and with my colleagues Jane and Lester, and with all of you who have contributed to my understanding of the world. I'm really overage for this gathering, and I am for these times. I don't belong in the Trump world. I grew up in a normative world, not a beautiful world, but a normative world, and the norms are being severed by the phenomenon of this time. When I became White House press secretary against my will in 1965, my father, a Baptist deacon, sent me a telegram saying, "Bill, tell the truth if you can, but if you can't tell the truth, don't tell a lie." He had a fourth-grade education and was the most honest man I ever knew. I did my best to honor his wish. It was hard, but even then our credibility was so bad we couldn't believe our own leaks. It was just as hard in journalism. When I came back to journalism, there were still problems. After I gave the commencement one year at Dartmouth, a graduating student came up to me and said, "Mr. Moyers, you've been in both government and journalism. That makes everything you say doubly hard to believe." So I've tried to stay humble because it's necessary. 67 years ago this June, on my 16th birthday, I went to work for the daily newspaper in the small East Texas town where I grew up. It was a good place to be a cub reporter, small enough to navigate and big enough to keep me busy and give me something to learn every day. From there, as you saw, I traveled long, far, and wide as journalism became my continuing course in adult education, with someone else paying the travel and the tuition. Sometimes my journey brought me here to this campus and several times to this podium. I always felt as if I were entering a sacred place. The high church of journalism is what my friend and mentor and soulmate, Dean Joan Connor, used to call it. The high church where the principles of our craft are exalted and the flame of inspiration never flickered. I'm grateful for those visits here, as I'm grateful to be back tonight. We journalists need each other. An alien force has arrived from the galaxy Orwell, making false claims on democracy, waging war against the press, littering our public agencies with no trespassing signs. Alternate facts have become the opioids of politics. It's a dangerous world, a disfigured world, marked by lies and threats. This evening, at least 6 of our media colleagues face up to 10 years in prison and a $25,000 fine after being arrested while covering the unrest at Donald Trump's inauguration. So this occasion and your work are charged with urgency. You have a mission to fulfill, to get your readers, listeners, and viewers as close as possible to the verifiable truth. And you have promises to keep to your audiences, to yourself, and to one another. We journalists need each other. As my own journey rounds the last curve, one thing I have learned in both government and journalism remains the unshakable certainty of my own education. Democracy can die of too many lies. A student once asked my friend, colleague, the historian and journalist Richard Reeves, "What's your definition of real news?" And Richard said, "The news we need to keep our freedom." So good luck to all of you. It's been a great honor. It is a great honor to have traveled so far in the company of so many kindred spirits. Thank you.
What an honor to be in your company, Bill. Thank you. Our next three winners honor science and environmental reporting, critical to our understanding of both global events and local concerns. The first winner is from WGBH's NOVA. In Mystery Beneath the Ice, the producers set out to answer a disturbing question. Why is the Antarctic's essential krill population that feeds much of the ocean's food chain shrinking so dramatically? This visually stunning and engaging film follows scientific researchers under the Southern Ocean's ice to discover the undeniable answer: climate change. During the 6-week unprecedented expedition, both crew and scientists endured grueling and dangerous conditions. The film, which features exquisite underwater footage, reveals just how vulnerable krill are to climate-induced changes in the polar ice pack, and once again reinforces the need for action to combat climate change. Let's take the plunge into the icy waters of the Southern Ocean in NOVA's Mystery Under the Ice.
500 miles from the coast of Antarctica, the icebreaker Polar Stern has forced her way deep into the ice pack surrounding the continent. Now, a team of scientists is leaving the safety of the ship to venture out onto the ice. They're in search of a tiny shrimp-like creature, seemingly insignificant, but with a vital role in the food chain.
The penguins eat them, the fish eat them, the seals eat them.
But all this is under threat.
We have a decrease of over 50%.
Krill have declined in some areas by 90%.
Because something unknown is decimating the krill population.
That means the system is changing dramatically, and we have to understand why that is.
The answer may lie hidden under the ice. Finding it means a dangerous dive into a dark and unexplored world, with no guarantee that they can solve the mystery beneath the ice.
Here to accept this award, please welcome for NOVA senior producer Chris Schmidt.
Thank you. So first of all, excuse me, I have a little bit of a cold. Let me thank the Columbia School of Journalism for this award. It's a wonderful honor. Also the DuPont jurors and the Candida Foundation who helped finance this film. As the first of 3 honorees who are here on behalf of Science and Environmental Studies, let me just ask, when did science become the bad guy? I mean, honest to God, it's like I went to college, I began as a physics major, and I was a nerd. And nobody paid any attention to me. And now, all of a sudden, just simply by asking questions, why, and using rational thought, we seem to be vilified. And NOVA has been exploring that intersection between those very simple factual-based questions and journalism and stories about the world around us. And I think we've done so in a way with a kind of naivete, that we assumed that maybe science isn't for everybody, but we're not going to be the bad guy for asking those questions. And now we are in the crosshairs. I just saw today several stories about, in the last week, various government agencies canceling inquiries into climate change, ruling that scientists on staff as government employees cannot communicate freely to the public. And it's a horrifying proposition. And I understand on some level that when we ask questions about things like krill, I mean, nobody cares about krill, right, in our daily lives. That's kind of what we thought when the film came to us. When we ask questions about things like krill, we're asking the viewer to use their imaginations and to go outside of their comfort zone, to go outside of their communities, to go outside of their democratic lives, their lives as citizens, and to care about something that they may not have any contact with. And when we do that, what we're doing is we're saying, you may not care about krill, but care about these people, these scientists, who are uncovering the story and bringing it to you. And when our filmmakers, David Sinkton and his colleague Heather Walsh, and Pam Sinkton, David's wife, who unfortunately couldn't be here today due to a family emergency, when David went out on that ship, the Polar Stern, into the Antarctic ice in the dead of winter, in search of an answer to a question, what's happening to the krill, he did so simply because it was an amazing question to ask, and because he believed that the scientists and the people who were spending that miserable 6 weeks on that ship would be excited and enthralled by the answer. And he and we did not anticipate that they would actually find an answer, which they did, which turned out to be important. And as a coda to that, let me just say, krill don't matter to us directly. Krill are part of the food chain in the Antarctic Southern Oceans. They don't matter to the cod that are being fished off of the northeast coast of Boston, where I live. They're not part of that food chain. But yet, even so, we found that our viewers cared about something as small as a crustacean living far away in the Southern Ocean that mattered somewhere on the world, on the planet. And that was what was so inspiring about this film. And we're so happy that our audience and that you all and the jurors and Columbia has recognized that. And let me just also quickly thank, I mentioned David Sinkton, the filmmaker who can't be here, and we're really sorry about that. Let me also thank Beth Hoppe from PBS, who supports us, and John Berdar, our VP of production, as well as Paula Apsel, the senior executive producer of Nova, and Melanie Wallace, who helped make these kinds of co-productions possible. And again, thank you very much. This is a huge honor.
I just want to say the work we're seeing tonight is just outstanding. I hope you are feeling much more inspired, if you weren't already, about what we do and the calling of journalism, because it's been terrific, terrific. Our next winner is an impactful radio documentary that brought the Flint, Michigan water crisis to national attention and aggressively pursued the state agency's cover-up of Flint's toxic lead poisoning. Michigan Radio led ongoing coverage of the complicated story, including an hour-long documentary, Not Safe to Drink, that finally drew national attention to Flint. It also forced state officials to acknowledge that switching Flint's drinking water source from the Detroit water system to the Flint River was made at the highest levels of state government. In this clip from Michigan Radio's Not Safe to Drink, we'll hear one family's wake-up call about the amount of lead in their drinking water.
Glasgow ran a test on Walter's water.
About a week later, I got the results, and it was pretty high for the lead, so I called her right away to let her know.
The results were alarming enough that Glasgow called Walters right away. But he couldn't reach her that afternoon. He left her a voicemail.
You have reached the voicemail box of 6.
Walters vividly remembers that message late that night.
Hi, Leanne. It's Mike from the water department. I just wanted to call and let you know we got your test back. Please, whatever you do, don't let your kids drink the water. Don't make their juice with it. And please just give me a phone call back as soon as possible.
Walters tossed and turned all night, worrying. How bad could the water be? By the time Walters did get a hold of Mike Glasgow the next day, she was kind of panicked.
He was like, your number's at 104, and I'm like, okay, well, what is it supposed to be? He's like, not over 15, and I'm like, wait, what?
I just want to make sure you really get these numbers they're talking about. I mean, there's no level of lead exposure that's considered safe. But any amount of lead in water above 15 parts per billion is a problem. At that level, cities are supposed to at least warn you how bad your lead levels are. The lead level in the water at the Walters place was 7 times higher than that. But at that moment, hearing that number, 104 parts per billion, Walters remembers she didn't know what to make of it.
Okay, and I'm like, what does this mean? He's like, we don't know. He's like, we've never seen a number like this before in the city. He's like, it's the highest anyone's ever seen.
Accepting the first silver baton for Michigan Radio, please welcome reporter Lindsay Smith.
I was going to say, I have people here. Please come help me. Oh, radio people are not good at this kind of thing. Ira did a much better job than I will. Okay, so thank you so much for this. Is an incredible honor for us. You know, Lester mentioned this is our first DuPont Award at Michigan Radio, and 75 years. I mean, we could have done a little bit better. I've only been here 6 years, and I am very much expecting that this will not be our last. I'm taking a lot of what everybody has said here to heart tonight, and it's really important stuff. I'm going to try not to get emotional about it. So I want to thank a couple people, Mark Brush, Rebecca Williams, Steve Carmody. This took a really big team. It wasn't just me. It took an amazing editor, Sarah Hewlett. It took an amazing news director, Vince Duffy, both of whom are not here tonight, but they have spines that you, as a reporter, are so thankful when they come in handy and back you up. When the governor's office is calling and threatening to, do whatever and take down your work, and it's wrong when it's not, and it's still not. And I want to thank, too, the people of Flint, this woman and Leanne Walters, who you heard. These people were relentless, and we reported about it a lot, and a lot of other media organizations reported about these bottles of dirty water and people showing up continuously to city council meetings, but it didn't change much. Failure on our part or not, it was the residents, it was the people that really drove the media and drove the scientists to the point where no one could ignore it anymore. And so I really feel like this goes to them. Having that backing it's huge. It's huge. So I think I'm just gonna wrap it up with that. They did an amazing job, and I will say one more thing though, we're not going anywhere. I promise those Flint residents, none of us are leaving. We're not going anywhere, and I invite all of the national people we love that, people have come and reported about this. It's not gone away. It's not going to go away. This is gonna continue to be a problem. And I think also with the changes in the administration, we have to stay on the EPA that this doesn't continue to happen in other cities, because Flint isn't the first time that we've seen lead levels. DC was another example. So we have to learn the lesson to really follow up and make sure that this stuff doesn't happen again in other cities. So here's to Flint.
You want your speech? Oh, she also said. Hey, take it as a souvenir. Congratulations. I can be obnoxious sometimes, sorry. Our next winner exposed a crisis in its community that is a homeowner's worst nightmare. NBC Connecticut's Crumbling Foundation started with one viewer's tip and led to dozens of stories in a hard-hitting investigative series that uncovered crumbling basement walls in hundreds of homes. The reports then went on to reveal the cause and its connection to a single concrete company. NBC Connecticut's investigative team, the Troubleshooters, exposed a financial and property crisis impacting homeowners in 3 counties, many of whose homes were in danger of collapsing. Insurance companies denied their claims, but after these investigative reports, the state and insurance companies agreed to develop a fund of $50 million for the victims. The jury called it an outstanding example of public service reporting. Let's take a look now at Crumbling Foundations.
Homeownership is the American dream. My dream has turned into a nightmare.
The problem the troubleshooters exposed in July is felt by homeowners from East Hartford to Ashford.
The foundation has moved so much.
Over 250 emails and calls from viewers to NBC Connecticut detail the emotional and financial hardship their crumbling foundation is having on their lives.
Where this is built, this is our child's playroom.
With insurance not covering it, the out-of-pocket cost goes into the hundreds of thousands.
What am I going to do?
According to some experts, the cause is a mineral called pyrrhotite, which is found in the quarry where J.J. Motors retrieves stone for its concrete. Research suggests, over time, air and water oxidize the pyrrhotite, causing it to swell and expand, leading to spider cracking, pushing the house up off the foundation, eventually failing.
Sources tell the troubleshooters state officials are working with the insurance industry to create a fund for homeowners in Hartford, Tolland, and Windham counties whose foundations are falling apart. The troubleshooters have learned the potential pool of cash is projected to be $52.5 million and could provide homeowners with up to 90% of the cost of replacing their foundations. Attorney General George Jepsen would confirm few details, but says this is now a public policy issue.
This is much more than an individual homeowner problem because the real estate market in a wide swath of Connecticut has dried up because people can't sell their homes unless they can prove that their foundation is sound.
Accepting the DuPont Silver Baton, please welcome investigative reporter Brad Drazen. I should have a baton for you, but we'll get it to you. Trust you. Congratulations.
What a great night. One of the things about being one of the last recipients in an evening like this is that you see the work that comes before you. And I don't know about my colleagues behind me, but I'm thinking to myself, did we really win one of these after seeing all of that phenomenal work from all of you out there? So give yourselves a huge round of applause. It's a huge honor for us to be here with you tonight. Unbelievable. It is a story at its core that is so simple about families and their American dream. You heard that one homeowner in the very beginning of the clip that you saw. And this has spiraled to the point that one homeowner coming forward to us has opened up what has turned out to be a paralyzing problem for a large swath of our state. So before I introduce the people behind me, one of the things that is a certainty is the wonderful resolution that we thought we had at the end of the year when we submitted the $52.5 million didn't happen. And the problem continues to mushroom. More and more homes are coming forward, and now it seems likely that there will ultimately be thousands of homes in 36 towns in part of Connecticut, and it will be close to between a $500 million and $1 billion problem in our state. So safe to say we have plenty of work left to do to hold government accountable and to find out how they're going to help solve these problems and make these homeowners whole and make these communities whole, whereas you heard the Attorney General say, no one is buying homes in these communities regardless of whether they have this problem. This started with one email that my colleague George Colley, investigative reporter, and Dave Miknowitz, photographer and editor, spent weeks and weeks and weeks investigating that email, and it broadening out to more and more people who were aware of the problem but didn't know where to turn. And the fact that at NBC Connecticut, part of the NBC-owned station, our team was given the leeway to go out, for George and Dave to go out day after day for weeks on end and not turn one story, with the trust that they were going to bring back something of meaning and impact in the public interest, which is what the DuPont Awards are all about, is a huge testament to NBC-owned station division and led by Valerie Staub, our executive producer Sharon Butterworth, and it has borne fruit. And so to the young journalists out there, to think that someone will give you the leeway and the power to go investigate and dig and trust you with that responsibility, first of all, you better bring something back. But But more importantly, that is truly a gift that should never be taken for granted. And we were lucky to be able to have that gift, to be able to deliver. And now we have many stories to come over the next years to put a button on it. It seems clear at this point with this small environmental problem, this mineral in the foundations, that homes are going to start showing the problem for the next 2 decades. So this is going to be an ongoing problem in a big part of our state. We're going to be there every step of the way. It'll go well beyond any of us up here on stage, but I trust that NBC Connecticut will continue to cover it. So thank you to Columbia University. It is really a huge honor for us to be here in your presence tonight, and it feels really good.
We'd like to take some time now to remember a dear colleague and friend of the journalism community and the DuPont Awards who passed away late last year. Gwen Ifill was one of the country's most trusted political reporters. Over the course of her 3 decades-long career, she covered 8 presidential elections and moderated 2 vice presidential debates, posing difficult questions with respect and integrity. A co-anchor and managing editor of the PBS NewsHour, as well as the moderator and managing editor of Washington Week, Gwen died on November 14th, 2016, from cancer. Gwen is remembered for her intellect and for her grace and for her generosity, mentoring the next generation of journalists. Let's take a look back at Gwen Ifill's remarkable career.
When you went to television,
yes,
we heard from Pete Williams that you took to it almost immediately.
That's so not true.
Good evening, I'm Gwen Ifill. Even marginal progress could be affected by investigations in Little Rock and in Washington. I want to talk to you about AIDS, and not about AIDS in China or Africa, but AIDS right here in this country.
When I was a little girl, there was a woman named Melba Tolliver who was on the news, and she had a big afro. And I just was transfixed by this idea. Didn't make me want to be in television as much as it made me want to tell the story.
How do we as a nation cope with race, conflict, and our inability to see each other?
Invariably, somebody will come up to me and tell me the story of their little girl. And it always stops me in my tracks. Because as long as I remember that there's someone on the other side of the piece of equipment, the camera, who's watching me with expectation, and it can shape what they do next, I have to take what I do seriously every single day.
Why don't you mention Donald Trump by name?
You know, he seems to do a good job mentioning his own name. So, Gwen was a friend of ours. She was an extraordinary journalist. She always kept faith with the fundamental responsibilities of her profession, asking tough questions, holding people in power accountable, and defending a strong and free press that makes our democracy work.
We have a dedicated, committed audience who want to know more, who want us to dig a little deeper on their behalf. And so if they weren't there, if they weren't supporting the work we do, we couldn't exist. And I think it's kind of vital to democracy that we do exist.
Here now to tell us a little more about Gwen is her friend and colleague and a trailblazer in her own right, journalist and author Charlayne Hunter-Gault.
Well, while I get my emotions together, let me congratulate all of the winners tonight. Inspiring work. Also, to thank the Columbia DuPont Awards for honoring Gwen in this way. I'm glad that you didn't call it a memorial, because Gwen is always with me, and I think always with many of you. Almost every day I run into strangers on the street who tell me, because they associate me with the NewsHour, how much they loved Gwen and how much they miss her. She lives. She really lives. And why? Because Gwen was living personification of the words that Christiane spoke a few minutes ago about Edward R. Murrow. She thought of herself as a journalist who could inspire, who could educate, who could teach. To be sure, Gwen didn't suffer fools gladly, but she did so with the utmost respect, so that even those she didn't suffer gladly respected her back. And despite her well-deserved adoration, she never forgot those who looked like her. Countless young women who took inspiration from a woman who had been confronted with hateful words in Boston at the beginning of her career and maybe beyond, though she would never publicly talk about it. And she not only stood as a role model for them, those who looked like her, but on a regular basis, she reached out to those and every other young aspiring journalist and told them, if I could, you can. Now, even before I got to know Gwen up close and personal, I instinctively knew how Gwen rolled. But we were both known as PKs. Now, some of you will get that, some of you won't, so I'll tell you. It's called preacher's kids. So I knew that Gwen was equipped with moral armor, fitted on us by the AME Church teachings, like the survivors of those who forgave the shooter in Charleston. Armor that served her, them, and me well, as we traversed roads not usually traversed by women who looked like us. It was moral armor that Gwen wore as she provided news that knew no boundaries, and also serving where she worked as the conscience of those places, not least ongoing challenges of covering one of the greatest stains on our democracy, racism. Gwen's armor kept her grounded and focused on her job and not history making. That led hundreds to her homegoing service at the AME Church in DC, where as often as she could, she attended on Sundays, and she sat in a particular church pew and allowed the Holy Spirit to polish her armor. Armor that enabled her, in her final hours at the hospice, to tell her brother something he shared with us on the day of her funeral. And he shared with us something that helped us understand how she could have put on such a beautiful face on television, time after time after time, while intermittently undergoing chemotherapy for the cancer that eventually took her away from us. Minutes before she became the ancestor, Bill Moyers, you know about ancestors, right? The ancestor who lives with us today, her brother told us at the funeral that in her final moments she said, I have no doubt, I have no doubt, I have no doubt. And when I was telling my son that, he said, well, what did she have no doubt about? I said, Chuma, she went to church every Sunday, so she had no doubt that the person whom she worshiped there, her confidence came from the God she worshiped, who would take care of her no matter where she went on the journey she was about to undertake. And so tonight, let me say, I have no doubt Gwen will remain the kind of inspiration that will keep people stopping me on the street, remembering her in all of her magnificent manifestations, and will help all of us in the profession she loved remain true to our values, especially now. Her spirit is echoing some of the words I heard here tonight. Her spirit is saying, take the heat. And to paraphrase my great civil rights colleague, John Lewis, who liked to say we should get in the way, I want to say to us that Gwen's spirit is telling each and every one of us when we go out to do our jobs to get in the way. To get in the way of falsehoods and false prophets and fake news, and continues to provide news that can be used for all of the people, all of the time. And remember her message when you do that, and say to yourself, when you perform the job that may get you stuck in somebody's tweet, I have no doubt.
Charlayne, we do thank you. Our final three winners tonight showcase powerful stories about women around the world, their challenges, obstacles, and their victories. The first is from HBO and filmmaker Charlayne Obaid-Chinoy, here tonight accepting her second DuPont Award for A Girl in the River, A Price of Forgiveness, a heart-rending documentary made in Pakistan. The film covers every nuanced angle of a bewildering social construct, that the need for patriarchal respect can be used to justify a daughter's murder. In Pakistan, more than 1,000 women perceived as having compromised the honor of their families are reported to be killed each year. Told through a love story, A Girl in the River examines the tensions between modernism and tradition in Pakistan today. Obaid-Chinoy told this dramatic story from all sides, interviewing both the victim's father and mother, as well as gaining access to the elders who pressured the girl to settle the case. In this clip from A Girl in the River, we'll revisit the scene of the crime.
सारे ना अगर किसी आए बताते हैं किसी आए ये वो जगह है जहाँ पे सबा कैसर को उसके वालिद और चचा वगैरह ने उसको ज़ख्मी करके यहाँ पे नहर में फेंक दिया था। यहाँ पे चूँकि नहर इतनी ज़्यादा करीब की जो है, किनारा इतना ज़्यादा गहरा नहीं है, लेकिन फिर भी यहाँ पे बड़े दिल गुर्दे का काम है। और रात के वक्त 11 साढ़े 11 बजे तो यहाँ बिल्कुल सुनसान होता है, तो यहाँ पे वो उसने थोड़ा सा किनारे साथ जो दरख्त हैं उसका उसने सहारा लिया और फिर वो यहाँ से निकल के
I can understand why she is inclined to reach a compromise. Our justice system is not strong enough to provide her security. Let's assume the accused are convicted and sentenced to 5 years of imprisonment. And they come out, and then they again try to kill her. Who is going to protect her?
This is HBO's 14th award. Would you please welcome filmmaker and director Charlayne Obaid-Chinoy.
Thank you so much to Columbia University and the DuPont jurors, and to HBO that gave this film a home, to Sheila Nevins, Lisa Heller, and to Jeff Bartz, who edited the film, as well as Tina Brown, who's been a big support for the film. This is the story of an 18-year-old girl in Pakistan, Sabah, who had the courage to tell her story, because she wanted to make sure that no other woman in Pakistan would be a victim of honor killing. Her story inspired the Prime Minister of Pakistan to push through legislation and close a critical loophole in the law that now makes it almost impossible to forgive perpetrators of honor killings and holds them accountable. That was the power of this film. I became a journalist right here in the United States because I came to college here, and many of the people sitting in this room have been my mentors, have inspired me, have pushed me to tell the truth, and have given me the opportunity to tell these important stories. So now more than ever, holding up a mirror to society for everyone in this room is as critical for all of you in this country as it is for people like me that work in other difficult countries. Because when you do your job, you inspire the rest of us and give us the strength to do our jobs around the world. Thank you so much.
Our next winner explores life in Afghanistan through the lens of one girls' school, its students, teachers, and their families. Forever Stan, the girls' school in Rise's Way, was produced by Ground Truth, a nonprofit news organization that devoted 3 years to reporting this compelling cross-platform project, one that illuminates an improbable phenomenon, a successful girls' school in Afghanistan. This online video and podcast series tells the story of the first graduating class and the tremendous effort and dedication of the school's founder. The digital build of this immersive transmedia project was done in partnership with GBH Digital in Boston. We'll catch up with the teachers from the girls' school on their hours-long commute in this clip from Ground Truth's Forever Stan.
Like almost all of the teachers at the Zabuli Girls' School, Nazima lives in Kabul City. She's one of 18 teachers picked up before school 6 days a week.
This subs is a little bit far away from our houses. So myself, I'm staying in the car for 2 hours, like from 6 o'clock up to 8 o'clock.
Well, you couldn't ask them to come so far away. They were very concerned of their safety, and the only way we could provide security is to bring them, all of them, together.
Reminders about security risks are ever present.
چند چقدر 42 دختر گفت مظلوم که در چیز شفاخانه بودن گپ میزدن دیگه از کی گلت شب خبرها در تلویزیون طلوع گفت.
Please welcome Ground Truth producer and director Beth Murphy.
Columbia, DuPont, we at the Ground Truth Project are absolutely thrilled to be receiving this award. It is such an incredible honor. Thank you so, so much. I think girls' education is about as close as we can come to really having a golden key that can help unlock solutions to things like poverty, security, health, and peace. And you know, in this little village in Afghanistan, the village name is Day Subs, and it's on the outskirts of Kabul province. There have been just mind-blowing changes that have happened over the past 10 years. And the woman who is really responsible for all of those changes is here with us tonight. It's Razia Jean. Razia is the founder of the Zabuli Education Center. Razia, I just thank you so much for lighting the way and for showing us that there is still reason to have hope in Afghanistan. Razia has faced many, 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 many obstacles over the years, but she has never, ever given up. And that's a real inspiration, and we at the Ground Truth Project have been incredibly honored to be able to tell your story. When I started making the film, I was really focused on making a verite documentary film, which it did become. The title of that film is What Tomorrow Brings, and it premiered at the Hot Docs International Film Festival and then had a broadcast life on the PBS POV series. So that was really my focus, but it was really the vision of the Ground Truth Project, and the Ground Truth founders, Charlie Sennett and Kevin Grant, are here, and I am so grateful and I'm so lucky to work with them and with our whole team. They really had an incredible vision for what this work could and should become. And it was interesting, I think we had some interesting conversations with DuPont during the time of the acceptance to tonight. So is the name Razia's Way? Yes, that's the name of the podcast. Is the name the Girls' School? Yes, that's the name of one of the short videos. We did a documentary short series. And it became all of these things, and it's really to the credit of Charlie and Kevin that it was able to become the multimedia project that it did become. At the Ground Truth Project, as we now expand our mission to really inspire and train and support the next generation of young journalists and documentary filmmakers, I would say we are in this climate really doubling down on the issues that we think are most important for all of us. Things like human rights, climate change, income inequality, national security. And that will be our focus in moving forward. And some of you young journalists out there, the MMJs, I hope that you'll come and talk with us. We're looking for you. And I'm really especially excited tonight to announce that as Razia has inspired us and has done so much to help the dreams of the girls in this village come true, the girls who are going to school for the very first time in their lives, we'd also we'd like to help some of them realize their dreams. Some of them want to become storytellers, and I'm very happy to announce that one of our newest Ground Truth Fellows is a young girl who has graduated recently from the Zabuli Education Center. So thank you, Razi, and we look forward to working with her and sharing more stories from Afghanistan and other places around the world moving forward.
Thanks, Beth. I'm Charlie Sennett, and I just wanted to quickly add some thanks. I have to thank Columbia, my alma mater. It's a big honor. But I really need to thank our supporters. This is a tough time in journalism. We need their support, and Ford, MacArthur, and Luce Foundation have supported us all along the way. WGBH, which we're really proud to call home. PBS NewsHour, which featured a lot of this work we did on Forever Stand. But most of all, I want to thank Beth, and I want to thank the whole team for every day going out and being just the living and breathing proof of what we believe in at Ground Truth, which is you have to be there on the ground to tell the story. Every day, our team at Ground Truth is somewhere in the world or somewhere in this country trying to mentor, support, edit, work with a new generation of journalists. So I really want to speak to the students and the fellows here just for a second and say, you who are emerging journalists, as Beth said, we want to talk with you, we want to work with you. It's a tough time in journalism, a really tough time, but you are the way forward. And I think it's really beautiful that this is a baton. So I wanted to just say, this baton is about journalism, and journalism is truly a relay. We hand off one form of storytelling to the next, newspapers to radio to television to the web. We hand off one generation to the next, legends like Bill Moyers, mentors like Gwen Ifill, and really talented young reporters like that amazing team at Fusion that did the opioid series. We are counting on you, the next generation, to pick up the baton. We want you to run with it, and we want you to run like hell. Thank you.
Well, our final winner tonight goes to Frontline on PBS, an institution from public broadcasting that over the years has been honored 35 times with DuPont batons. This year, we end the evening as we began. We once again pay tribute to deep reporting that focuses on the consequences of war. 2 films from Frontline fearlessly do just that. In Escaping ISIS, producers made contact with activists who risked their lives inside ISIS-held territory to rescue women and girls held captive there. Director Edward Watts was the first filmmaker allowed to shoot an underground network as it slipped in and out of enemy territory, ferrying survivors home. The second film, Children of Syria, is an intimate documentary that spans 3 years with one family, from their hometown of Aleppo to their new lives in Germany. Made with perseverance and compassion and incredible bravery by director and producer Marcel Mettelsiefen. Let's take a look.
وانا هندا قد انا قد يجي بخور راكرينا سي هو 4 بين هاتن بين دور تقريبا 5 متر يلا
Faisal has been warned by the Yazidi fighters to stay back, but he runs towards the front of the group.
One.
"24 of his relatives have made it out and brought 10 more captives with them. They say they had been held for 8 months in Talafar. Some have walked barefoot for 3 days. Faisal's 60-year-old mother has made it. Many schools in Aleppo have been destroyed or closed. Helen gives lessons to her sisters and their friends.
بعض الدرس ما بدي اسمع ولا حس والكل انتباه علي بس عم بحاول ما اقتلهم وما اعيط عليهم بس خير قصاي بروك بس ما بدي اسمع صوتك يلا بابا رجاء ما حدا يجي لعندي اثناء الدرس بابا بابا الجماعة بابا من جماعتك ما حدا بيجي هلا لهون ممنوع
يعني بدهم يضلوا مع أبوهم. أنا جربت وطلعت 2 شهر وعانيت كتير معهم لأني بدهم أبوهم. أول الأمر ضل بالبيت قول ما يقوم حدا يتصاوب. الأولاد كنت أحطهم كلهم أحاول إني ما يناموا. كنت أعطيهم كتير شراب ساعة وهيك مشان ما يحسوا على شيء يعني. بس وقت اللي كتير يصير ونحن على شارع إلا ماما ألعاب نارية. شيء لهم فتاش انا كثير بحبوا الفتاش يعني هيك اقعد اتحجج لهم بس بعدين ما بخرج اتحجج لهم.
Accepting the silver DuPont baton, would you please welcome Frontline executive producer Rainey Aronson Rath with filmmakers Marcel Mettelziesen and Edward Watts, along with a special guest all the way from Germany.
Closer, please. These are the makers of those amazing documentaries. First of all, thank you to Columbia and to the jurors. It is always a treasured moment as an alum, but also at Frontline. And of course, David Fanning, our founder, always said this was the award, right? So every year we would work for the highest journalism award, and we just want to thank you for that. I wanted to say a lot of people have spoken about journalism, and it's a long night, so I will say quickly that it seems to me that journalism is alive and well. I loved everything that everyone said. My message to my staff every day and our producers is let's just work really hard, let's be serious, let's be factual, let's be fair. And that's what we do, so I think we can keep true to that. I'm so thrilled that WGBH is in the house and PBS and public media. So many of our partners are here. I love that we are already working together. And I can't even count the collaborators in this room, but together we're stronger. I want to thank Beth Hoppy, Jonathan Barzilay, Marie Nelson, John Berdar. I especially want to say 2 words about 2 people on my team that do so much. Andrew Metz. Oh, he's on stage, that's great. He's usually the editor in the background, and we have a verb for him, it's called metzing, which means that he's incredibly detail-oriented and incredibly good at his job and exacting, and in my book, that's everything. And I want to thank Dan Edge, who couldn't be here tonight, who was a brilliant senior producer for Marcel's film, and most of all, I really want to thank the filmmakers and Hala. Hala's family shared stories with Marcel for over 3 years, and the last time I saw Hala, she was standing in front of the General Assembly at the United Nations, sharing her story as loudly and as strongly as she could to say that we need to hear their stories. And your children shared their stories as well, and I have children the same age, and to hear those stories over and over in the edit room and then to be able to air them on PBS was truly a miracle. So thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Rainey. Thank you, DuPont and Columbia University, for this great honor. I think first and foremost, my super producer, Evan Williams, and I would like to thank the incredibly courageous Syrians and Iraqis who daily risk their lives to undermine ISIS and bring about their final defeat. Their work was what made our film what it is. Obviously, nothing would have happened without our incredible support from the broadcasters, Rainey herself, Andrew, all the fantastic people at Frontline, PBS, WGBH, and of course, Channel 4 in the UK. But ladies and gentlemen, all of us on the team would tell you that this award is not for us. It's for the young women who appear in our film. Some of them were not even teenagers when they were abducted from their homes by the Islamic State and carried off into a life of unimaginable sexual slavery. They had the strength to survive, to escape, and then the supreme courage to tell their stories to our cameras. Now, I didn't get the memo about the need to be inspiring in speeches tonight. But as this night ends and we all go out there to do battle with the champions of post-truth, I think we could do a lot worse than remember the example of these young women. They show us that the human spirit can overcome these forces that are wreaking havoc in our world. They give hope to us all. So thank you. And here's Marcel.
Well, the last one saying something after so many people said so many big and important things, it's quite difficult. First of all, thank you, Columbia University. Thank you to everybody who has been involved for this very, very long journey. Thank you, Rainey. Thank you, Andrew. Thank you, Dan, who is not here. It was a long journey. 3 years working on one film changed me, changed everybody. I started as a still photographer 5 years ago when the Syrian uprising started. It was a different world. It was a different world in the Middle East, and it's now a different world in your country. I learned so much in a very, very difficult environment if it comes to telling the truth. What is fake? How many truths are here? And everybody's playing with it. It's a very dirty war going on there. And the victims are the families we're telling the stories about. And all this would not be possible if we would not be able to gain their trust. I learned one thing. To receive is impossible if you don't give. And I was able to gain the trust of Hala's family, of a Muslim female family. As a German male journalist, I just appeared 4 years ago in their life, and they opened their hearts and they let me tell their story, which is so important, a counter narrative of what's going on right now in demonizing an entire religion and a country. So thank you very much, Hala, for giving me this trust. Thank you for taking me into your family and for this entire 3 years. And I've been on the stage a couple of times because of these films, because of this family, and I'm so unbelievable happy that I'm able to share the stage this time with Hala, with this incredible woman who've been telling us her story.
Well, from all of us, congratulations to all of the 2017 DuPont winners tonight. Congratulations, thank you, and have a very good evening.